Welcome in, everyone. I'm your host, Gabe Yoakum, and this is Tradecraft. On the podcast, I talk to people who are incredibly good at what they do. Together, we take a deep dive into the distilled passion that makes successful people successful. Equal parts informative, interesting, and inspiring, we hope. We want you to walk away having learned something and feeling duly entertained. To that end, friends for nearly 20 years now, my guests today met at university and quickly bonded over a shared passion.
God,
not uncommon. Not uncommon, one might imagine. When that shared passion is faux fighting, imaginary athletics, fraudulent fisticuffs, which is to say, professional wrestling, and that university is focused on the arts and communication, you got a stew going. Jack Encarnacao is a well-tenured combat sports analyst, professional researcher, not professional wrestler, professional researcher, and journalist. JP Sarro is a seasoned television and theater actor, voice artist, and production pro. Together, 7 years ago, they created a wrestling-themed podcast that sought out to do better. The lapsed fan co-chairmen bring a unique chemistry and perspective to discussion of the pro wrestling of lore, reviewing wrestling's past with a fresh set of eyes and driving home week after week that it, and maybe everything, used to be better. Jack, JP, welcome to Tradecraft.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Howard.
Thank you, Howard.
We'll get into that too.
All right.
As is tradition, I do like to start at the beginning. In this case, since we're all wrestling fans here, and that seems to be the through line of what this episode is going to talk about, fandom and an audience and being of a certain age. Let's start a little before the beginning. Why wrestling? Take me there. You're 6 or 7 or 8, and you're in your living room, and you discover it for the first time.
I feel like that'd be a good excuse to like it if I was 6 or 7 and 8 when I first started.
It's
Yikes.
a valid point. How old were you, JP?
I was 10, so I was already in double digits before I really became a fan. I'd seen it sporadically over maybe the course of a year here and there, some like little clips. I'm like, oh yeah, that's that wrestling shit that they do. Oh, I don't know. Am I allowed to say bad words?
Oh yeah.
All right.
Let
cool.
it rip.
And then finally one time I stumbled across it and I was like, okay, I'm going to memorize the channel. I'm going to know where I am. I'm going to follow this stuff right now. And I'm going to watch this week to week. And then I started doing it November of 1991. And
how fast was it? Like after you started seeing it and going, oh, it's that wrestling shit, before it became, I'm here every week, like clockwork.
I would say, so the first time I saw it, it was a one-off thing, and I was just like flabbergasted because I was watching people punch each other in a boxing ring, and I was like, what is this? This is amazing. Like, they're fighting like they should fight, not like those boxers and those idiots.
People punching each other in a boxing ring. It's called boxing.
No gloves. The gloves are for pussies. Let's be honest. And then I saw it again, like some of the build up to Hogan Slaughter WrestleMania 7. And again, I was intrigued because now, oh, look at that. I got Hulk Hogan here and Sergeant Slaughter, and like, oh, this is all right. Okay. I know Slaughter from G.I. Joe. That's pretty cool. And then the following November. So, there was like a November watch, a February watch, and then November of 91 was like, boom, that was it. And I was like, I gotta keep up with this.
Jack?
Yeah. So I guess if I were to say why I started liking it, it was about 6 or 7 years old. I want to say 7. It was really because I found myself fascinated with what it looks like to beat somebody else up. Like what it actually takes to win a hand-to-hand fight. And so I was incredibly into the Karate Kid movies. I was into Ninja Turtles. I was into martial arts, or at least, commercial displays of martial arts, cinematic displays of martial arts. And along comes wrestling, and it didn't have the fleet of foot kind of light. There wasn't necessarily underdogs in there that were overcoming size differentials. It was, Hulk Hogan imposing his size on somebody. And what does that mean to beat somebody else's ass? And to what the boss was talking about, I call him the boss. Folks are going to have to get over that pretty quickly.
That's fine. I'm over it.
Yeah, right. And so it became this kind of like expansion of what what fighting could look like when you came hand to hand with somebody else. And it was, of course, all histrionics and over the top and pantomime, but I didn't really appreciate that. I actually thought that this might very well be what it looked like if, to Boss's point, you had no gloves, you had no rules, you had no limitations, and you were just allowed to do, beyond closed fists and all the other weird rules wrestling has, just do this. And so you develop this impression of like, oh, this maybe is closer to what it would look like if two people just had it out on the street. Ultimately, mixed martial arts in the UFC, laid everything bare as far as what the closest simulation to a fight would look like, sans weapons and with just, just enough rules to prevent, complete death. But so that's kind of where it came from. And then you fall in love with the showmanship from there. And then you realize like, oh, it's not really about how realistic the fighting is. It's about how exciting you can make the fighting.
So on your fandom journeys, where did you fall off? Because we all do at some point. That's why the show's called The Lapsed Fan. So where did you fall off? Where did you come back?
Well, let's see here. I never really fell off. I mean, I had a period in 94 and 95 where I was watching more X-Men than I was wrestling. So I consider that, and just checking in every now and then. I wasn't a week-to-week obsessive consumer, but the thing is, WWF didn't start really running weekly live. Well, it wasn't live, but Monday Night Raw, the flagship Monday night television show, didn't start until 1993. And by that point, I was, 3 years in, 2 years in as a fan, 3 years. And so developed kind of viewing habits that weren't ready to take that plunge of being in front of the TV every Monday necessarily. I don't even know if my prepubescent mind even understood that it was on every single Monday night, but whatever. So I think that's what happened. It's like anything else. If you fall behind on the narrative of professional wrestling, it becomes exceptionally difficult, especially before the network when everything could be rewatched chronologically, to get back involved and to not feel disoriented and to actually have your interest, hooked. But really, I had a 2-year period where I watched a little less, but really my whole life I've watched it obsessively. So it doesn't, Lapsed Fan doesn't necessarily denote that we truly stopped watching. It more denotes how we can't stop watching and how sad a state of affairs that is.
I'll say that's true. I have stopped watching. I don't watch anymore on a week-to-week basis. I want to say, in retrospect, I feel like where I started kind of, cutting it down from my viewership was probably around the Chris Benoit stuff. I don't think I consciously knew that at the time, but from then on, I definitely have watched less. And to me, the defining moment was, I'm going to say it must have been 2011, something like that, where I was like, I don't watch this. And so I took it off my DVR. I read about it, but I don't watch it. And going through, I'd have backed up episodes of Raw and SmackDown and all that stuff. And it's like, I don't have time to go through all this stuff. Like, I'll just read about it. And if something piques my interest, I'll go find it on YouTube or wherever, or I'll turn on the Hulu version, the 90-minute version. I don't know if they still do that anymore, but they used to do that. And I used to watch that every now and again. But yeah, I'm going to say around 2011, maybe 2012, I consciously made the decision, you know what? I do not watch this anymore. I do not need to record it on my DVR.
I think you're probably in the same boat with a lot of people our age. I think that's about the time when people started just fleeing from the product.
Yeah. So, and you don't outgrow it. It changes under your nose. It's like,
yeah. Outgrowing it just doesn't happen. Because we could get really deep into that, so we're not going to do it. Now we've reached the beginning, right? I want to talk about how Jack meets JP, how JP meets Jack, and how this this marriage of sorts comes to
Jesus.
be. I know you went to Emerson College. The reason that always sticks out to me is that I applied to Emerson College when I was in high school and got denied. But I just remember thinking that when I found out you guys went to Emerson, I was like, okay, interesting.
Until you said high school, I was going to say, well, okay, you applied in middle school. That's why you didn't get in. No, okay. talk about it. Well, geez, right?
Oh
We had
God.
a class together.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you. I do want to specify this. The timing of it, it honest to God, if the world, if more so my life, I would say, because I did things rather differently. If my life hadn't gone literally the way that it had, we might not be here right now. Because after high school, I took a year and a half off before I went to college. I graduated high school in 1999. And I was out. I was doing some work. I did, an internship with Ken Burns. I don't know if you know Ken Burns, but
Of course.
Okay, documentary filmmaker, and I worked on his jazz film and stuff. And then eventually I came back around to applying to colleges, and Emerson. I don't know. I was thinking about it the other day. I don't know why this came to my mind. It doesn't matter. But I chose Emerson. Emerson was like it. They had everything I wanted out of a college, and so I ended up going in January of 2001. And because I'm not as smart as Jack when it comes to academics, I had this precursor writing class, and Jack wasn't there yet. And so I had this precursor writing class that I had to take my first semester. And the only reason he and I had this class together is because I had to take that precursor class, and he's smart enough that he didn't have to take that precursor class. And so we just happened to coincide and be in the same class at the same time in September of 2001. Like, just honestly, stars aligning, the whole shebang.
I was going to say, it really was the most significant thing to happen in September 2001.
It really was.
One might call it lapse serendipity.
One might.
Yes, one might. But then we had this writing class together, and again, just by chance of fate, if you will, if you believe in that sort of thing, we ended up being assigned to be partners in a 3-person group for a project. I don't remember what the project was.
Probably Meditations on Cinema.
It was probably meditations on themes of a writer or something.
Right. Meditations on post-punk. On post-punk.
Meditations on postage.
And stamps they were a lot cheaper back then.
I think Stomp was on Broadway at the time.
You see, and I'm going to stop you guys right here because
yeah, please orient your listeners, Gabe, because this can go off the rails quickly.
You just lost it on 10 listeners just now.
We're going to get into this in a little bit, but it's stuff like this that I think, believe it or not, make you guys more successful.
I agree, actually.
We'll get deep into it, but this is the way I talk with what I call my best wrestling friend.
Right.
The guy who introduced me to the podcast back in 2014. But this is it, you guys, and this isn't something that you share with the listenership on the episodes, and it's this kind of in the middle of reviewing deeply reviewing these pieces of wrestling. It kind of breaks down into these riffs.
Yes, it does.
That we are not part of the in-joke, but we are a privy to
it. I like that.
Privy to so, and it feels good as a listener. It feels like, oh, I'm listening to my buddies talk about wrestling.
And that's huge, because that's what you're missing growing up as a wrestling fan, because it's so socially isolating to be a wrestling fan.
Most of the time you're isolated.
We'll get into that too.
Basement, but yeah. But the thing is, this is where it all kind of comes together. So we ended up meeting in I don't know why